What if I told you that the biggest obstacle in your life isn't your circumstances, your past, or even the people who have wronged you, but you? And what if I told you that everything you've been doing to overcome this enemy, motivational quotes, self-help books, or even blaming external forces, is completely missing the point? Friedrich Nietzsche believed that life's greatest struggle isn't with the outside world, but with yourself. Yet, here's the twist: Nietzsche didn't think the goal was to defeat this inner enemy. He believed the goal was to transform it, to turn your inner conflict into the greatest source of your power. In this video, we're going to break down Nietzsche's secret to defeating yourself, not in the way you think, but in a way that will change how you see everything. We'll explore how Nietzsche's ideas about struggle, self-overcoming, and the will to power can help you stop sabotaging yourself and start creating the life you were meant to live. Let's start with a question: why are we so often our own worst enemy? Why do we procrastinate, doubt ourselves, or settle for less than we're capable of? Nietzsche believed it's because we're at war with ourselves. Inside each of us, there's a constant battle between who we are and who we could be. On one side, there's the part of you that's comfortable, safe, and afraid of change. On the other side, there's the part of you that's ambitious, courageous, and hungry for growth. Nietzsche called this tension self-overcoming, and he believed it's the essence of what it means to be alive. But here's the problem: most of us avoid this battle. We distract ourselves with entertainment, numb ourselves with routines, or blame others for our lack of progress. We tell ourselves stories about why we can't change. It's too late, I'm not good enough, or it's not my fault, and these stories keep us stuck. Nietzsche would call this bad faith, the act of lying to yourself to avoid facing the truth. And the truth is this: the only thing standing between you and your potential is you.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Here's where Nietzsche's philosophy gets radical. He didn't believe the goal was to eliminate struggle. He believed the goal was to embrace it. Nietzsche saw struggle as the driving force of life, the engine of growth. He once wrote, "One must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star." What does that mean? It means that the parts of you that feel chaotic, conflicted, or out of control aren't problems to be solved. They're raw material to be shaped. Your doubts, fears, and failures aren't weaknesses, they're opportunities. They're the forge in which you can create something greater. But how do you turn chaos into a dancing star? Nietzsche's answer lies in the concept of the will to power. This isn't about power over others, it's about power over yourself. It's the drive to grow, to create, to transcend. The will to power isn't about avoiding pain, it's about using pain as fuel. It's about taking everything that holds you back, your insecurities, your mistakes, your limitations, and turning it into the source of your strength. Let's break this down with an example. Think about a time when you faced a failure or setback. Maybe you lost a job, failed a test, or were rejected by someone you cared about. In that moment, you had a choice. You could have let it define you, telling yourself, "I'm not good enough," and giving up. Or you could have used it as a lesson, a challenge, a reason to grow. Nietzsche would argue that the second path, the path of self-overcoming, is what makes life meaningful. It's not about avoiding failure, it's about what you do with it. But here's the catch: self-overcoming isn't comfortable. It requires you to face the parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. Nietzsche called this process becoming who you are, and it's not for the faint of heart. Becoming who you are means stripping away everything that isn't truly you: the expectations of others, the excuses you've made, the fears that hold you back. It means confronting your inner enemy head-on and saying, I refuse to let you control me. Now let's get practical. How do you actually do this? How do you stop being your own worst enemy and start becoming your greatest ally? Nietzsche would offer 3 steps. First, embrace struggle. Second, confront your lies. Third, create meaning. The first step, embracing struggle, is about changing your relationship with pain. Most of us see pain as something to avoid, whether it's physical, emotional, or existential. But Nietzsche saw pain as a teacher. He believed that growth and comfort cannot coexist. If you want to grow, you have to step into discomfort. You have to do the hard things, face the tough questions, and take the risks that scare you. Pain isn't the enemy, it's the price of admission for a meaningful life. The second step, confronting your lies, is about radical honesty. Nietzsche believed that most people live in denial. They tell themselves they're victims of circumstance, that their failures are someone else's fault, or that they're too weak to change. But these lies are just a way of avoiding responsibility. Nietzsche would challenge you to stop lying to yourself and start taking ownership of your life. This doesn't mean blaming yourself for everything. It means recognizing that you have the power to change, no matter where you are or what you've been through. The third step, creating meaning, is the most profound. Nietzsche believed that life has no inherent meaning. There's no grand plan, no ultimate purpose handed down from above. This might sound depressing, but Nietzsche saw it as liberating. If life has no inherent meaning, then you're free to create your own. You don't have to follow society's rules, chase someone else's idea of success, or live up to anyone's expectations. You get to decide what matters to you. You get to write your own story. Here's the challenge: creating meaning isn't easy. It requires courage, creativity, and a willingness to stand alone. It means asking yourself questions that most people avoid. What do I truly want? What am I willing to fight for? What kind of person do I want to become? And it means answering those questions not with words, but with actions. Let's go deeper. Nietzsche believed that your greatest enemy, yourself, can also be your greatest ally. The parts of you that hold you back, the fear, the doubt, the chaos, are the same parts of you that can propel you forward. But only if you face them. Only if you take responsibility for them. Only if you stop running from the truth. Here's a thought to sit with. What if every obstacle in your life, every failure, every fear wasn't something to overcome but something to use? What if the very things you think are holding you back are the keys to your growth? Nietzsche would argue that this isn't just a mindset, it's a way of life. It's the path of self-overcoming, the path of the will to power, the path to becoming who you are. But let's be honest, this path isn't for everyone. It's hard, it's lonely. It requires you to give up the comfort of blaming others and take full responsibility for your life. But Nietzsche would say that this is the only path that leads to true freedom. Because when you defeat your inner enemy not by destroying it, but by transforming it, you become unstoppable. You become the creator of your life, the master of your fate, the person you were meant to be. Most people don't want to hear this, but Nietzsche believed that avoiding the battle with yourself is the quickest way to waste your life. He saw it everywhere: people settling for mediocrity, clinging to comfort, and running from the very struggles that could set them free. And the harshest part? He believed that most people choose this path willingly, not because they're incapable of more, but because they're afraid of what self-overcoming demands. Why would anyone choose to avoid their potential? Nietzsche would say the answer is simple: comfort is easier. Growth is uncomfortable. Facing yourself means stepping into pain, uncertainty, and doubt. It means admitting that you've been lying to yourself, that you've made mistakes, and that you've been complicit in your own suffering. That's not a truth people want to face. So instead, they build lives around distraction. They convince themselves that they're doing fine, that their small victories are enough, and that the big questions about life and meaning can wait. But Nietzsche would argue that this isn't living, it's surviving. Here's the problem with comfort: it tricks you into thinking you're safe. It tells you stay where you are. Don't rock the boat. Don't take risks, but comfort is a trap. The longer you stay in it, the smaller your world becomes. You stop challenging yourself. You stop growing. And eventually you start to resent the very life you've built. Nietzsche called this the spirit of revenge, not revenge against others, but against life itself. It's the bitterness that comes from knowing, deep down, that you've settled for less than you're capable of. Think about it. How often do you see people blaming their unhappiness on external things? Their boss, their family, the government, the economy. Nietzsche would say this is a distraction. It's easier to point fingers than to admit that the real problem is within. The real problem is the part of you that's afraid to change. The part of you that would rather stay comfortable than face the struggle of becoming something more. But here's the twist: Nietzsche didn't see this fear as a weakness. He saw it as a starting point. He believed that every person has the capacity for greatness, but only if they're willing to face their fear of suffering. Because suffering isn't the problem. The problem is running from it. Nietzsche believed that suffering is a necessary part of growth, a crucible that shapes you into who you're meant to be. The question isn't how to avoid suffering, it's how to use it. One of Nietzsche's most famous ideas is the concept of Amor Fati, or love of fate. This isn't about resignation. It's about embracing everything in your life, the good, the bad, the painful, as necessary. It's about seeing your struggles not as obstacles, but as opportunities to grow. Nietzsche believed that when you stop resisting your fate and start loving it, you take back your power. You stop being a victim of circumstance and start becoming the creator of your life. But let's be real, loving your fate isn't easy. It means taking responsibility for everything in your life, even the parts you didn't choose. It means accepting your mistakes, your failures, and your pain as necessary steps on the path to self-overcoming. And it means letting go of the stories you've told yourself about why you can't change. Nietzsche would argue that this is the hardest thing you can do, but also the most liberating. Let's break this down with an example. Imagine you've been stuck in the same job for years. You hate it, but you stay because it's safe. You tell yourself it's not so bad. I need the money. I don't have time to figure out what I really want. These excuses might feel valid, but Nietzsche would challenge you to dig deeper. What's really holding you back? Is it fear of failure? Fear of uncertainty? Fear of what people might think if you quit? Nietzsche would say that until you face these fears, you'll stay trapped. Not because of your job, but because of the stories you've told yourself. This is where the will to power comes in. Nietzsche believed that the will to power isn't just about ambition or success, it's about transformation. It's the drive to take what life gives you and turn it into something meaningful. If you hate your job, the will to power doesn't mean quitting recklessly. It means using the discomfort as fuel to figure out what you really want and take steps toward it. It means turning your frustration into action, your fear into courage, and your excuses into solutions. But here's the thing: the will to power isn't something you can outsource. No one can do this work for you. Nietzsche believed that true growth has to come from within. You can read books, watch motivational videos, or talk to mentors, but at the end of the day, it's up to you to make the choice. It's up to you to face your inner enemy and say, I'm not going to let you hold me back anymore. Now, let's talk about what happens when you avoid this work. Nietzsche believed that avoiding self-overcoming doesn't just keep you stuck, it makes you weaker. The longer you avoid facing yourself, the harder it becomes to change. Your fears grow louder, your doubts grow stronger, and your comfort zone becomes a prison. And eventually you start to believe that change isn't possible. You start to believe that this is just who you are. But Nietzsche would argue that this is a lie. He believed that change is always possible, no matter how stuck you feel or how far you've fallen. The key is to stop waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect plan. The key is to start where you are with what you have and take the next step. It doesn't have to be big or dramatic. It just has to be real. Here's a question to think about. What's one thing in your life that you've been avoiding? Maybe it's a conversation, a decision, or a habit you know you need to break. Whatever it is, Nietzsche would challenge you to stop avoiding it and face it head on. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Because every time you avoid the battle with yourself, you give more power to the part of you that wants to stay small. But here's the good news: every time you choose to face yourself, you get stronger. Every time you embrace struggle instead of running from it, you grow. And every time you take responsibility for your life, you take back your power. This is what Nietzsche meant by self-overcoming. It's not about being perfect or fearless. It's about choosing growth over comfort, action over excuses, and truth over lies. Nietzsche would argue that this is what it means to live authentically. It's not about following a formula or chasing someone else's idea of success. It's about becoming who you are, even when it's hard, even when it hurts. Because in the end, the greatest battle you'll ever fight isn't with the world, it's with yourself. And the reward for winning that battle isn't just success or happiness, it's freedom.